And the most common form of gender-affirming care for young people is medications that simply pause puberty and have been used safely for decades. So why do my colleagues across the aisle, so-called limited government people, suddenly want government to get in the way of the decisions that parents and their kids make together? Why do they want to stop children from getting medical care that has been proven to be safe and effective and helps them to live happily? Helps them to live. Just live.
A heated confrontation on the House floor as Representative Pramila Jayapal delivers a fiery defense of irreversible procedures for minors, sparking a national firestorm over child safety. The halls of Congress have become a primary battleground for the soul of the next generation. Representative Pramila Jayapal stood before a nearly empty chamber, but her words were intended for a much larger audience. The debate centered on the Do No Harm in Medicaid Act, a piece of legislation designed to ensure that federal taxpayer dollars are no longer used to fund permanent physiological changes in children. For the traditionalist majority, this is a matter of basic medical ethics and the protection of vulnerable youth from experimental treatments. They argue that the state has a compelling interest in preventing irreversible procedures before an individual reaches the age of legal consent. The atmosphere in the Capitol was heavy with the weight of this cultural crossroads, as the two sides presented diametrically opposed visions of parental rights and medical responsibility. Jayapal's rhetoric was nothing short of explosive. She characterized the Republican effort as an unprecedented overreach into the private lives of American families. Leaning into the microphone, her voice rising in a sharp crescendo, she questioned the authority of the government to intervene in these highly controversial medical decisions. She argued that these conditioning programs and chemical interventions are essential for the well-being of the youth involved, citing a medical consensus that many conservatives believe has been ideologically compromised. Her gestures were sharp, her palms open, then clenched into fists as she pounded the lectern for emphasis. To her supporters, this was a courageous stand for personal liberty. To her critics, it was a defense of a systemic failure that ignores the long-term consequences of such drastic medical paths, often undertaken by those too young to fully grasp the gravity of their choices. The reaction online was instantaneous and overwhelming. Within minutes of the speech being uploaded to social media, the clip began to circulate among millions of concerned citizens. The intensity of opposition was palpable. Many viewers expressed a sense of profound alarm, interpreting the representative's defense as an endorsement of what they describe as grave ethical violations against children. The digital landscape became a mirror of the nation's deep divide, with many calling for a total neutralization of these funding streams to prevent further harm. The discourse was not merely political, it was deeply emotional, touching on the fundamental role of the family versus the state. Critics pointed to the rising number of individuals who regret these permanent changes, suggesting that the medical consensus Jayapal cited is rapidly fracturing under the weight of new evidence and tragic testimonials from those who feel they were misled by a flawed system. As the dust settles on this particular floor debate, the broader conflict is only beginning to intensify. The passage of restrictions on federal funding marks a significant victory for the traditionalist movement, but the legislative battle is just one front in a much larger cultural struggle. Advocates for the Do No Harm approach are now looking towards state-level action, seeking to further dismantle the infrastructure that supports these controversial procedures. Meanwhile, the opposition is regrouping, promising to use every legal and political tool at their disposal to reverse these gains. The stakes could not be higher, as the outcome will determine the standard of care for the next generation of Americans. It remains a question of truth and tradition versus a rapidly evolving social experiment. The nation watches, waits, and prepares for the next chapter in this defining struggle for the protection of the innocent.